And I'd like to welcome the Minister to her new post. Minister, I see that planning is now part of your portfolio. It wasn't previously included with the local government and housing department's responsibilities. I appreciate what you've said today. You've only been in office for 6 weeks, but do you have any initial thoughts on how well the planning process works in Wales?
So the reason that we've combined planning into this portfolio is that we can bring together as many of the levers as we have here in the Welsh Government to solve some of the endemic problems that we have with, for example, building sufficient housing or some infrastructure issues. And I'm looking forward to being able to use all of those levers together in the process. We did just reissue Planning Policy Wales back in December, so it's early days to see yet whether that's working effectively.
Thank you for clarifying some of the reasons why the planning element has been brought into the department. I think, certainly from my point of view, I think it's probably useful. I always thought, planning is something that straddles a couple of different possible departments, but I always thought perhaps putting it together with housing would perhaps make things easier. Of course, we do need to respond to housing needs, but there is also an argument that the planning system isn't always responsive to local needs going the other way, when sometimes we have planning decisions made which have been rejected sometimes by local councils, but which then get approved by the planning inspector going against that. Now, obviously, I'm not going to bring in any specific cases because you wouldn't be able to comment on them. But do you think that there is a valid argument that planning isn't responsive enough to local needs?
So the planning system is extremely complex, and the quasi-judicial nature of it makes it very difficult to comment on particular cases. The member will be very well aware that at local authority level, the local authority sets the local development plan, and they are enabled through that plan to take full account of the democratic wishes of the people they represent in setting out the spatial needs of their area according with a set of planning rules, part of which are Planning Policy Wales, but a set of planning rules stemming from various planning acts at UK level as well as at Welsh level. We have a system of call-in to the Welsh Government, which works because we take a very careful judicial view of whether the very specific criteria for call-in do or don't work, and where something is called in, it is handed over to professional inspectors for them to take a view on behalf of the government. I think that works perfectly well. I do think there are capacity issues sometimes with the speed of that, but I don't see any reason to upend the legal part of that. However, it's very important that the policy parts of that interact correctly with it, and that we set the policy agenda properly within which the quasi-judicial system can work.
Thanks for your assessment of how it works with the call-in system. So I'm glad you've given your thoughts on that. How about the issue of how effective the LDPs are as a measure of setting local needs? Because there has been criticism of the LDP system itself in recent years.
Yeah, so I think the issue with the LDPs sometimes is the speed and the capacity with which local authorities are able to put them together. We have been working very closely with local authorities across Wales to ensure that they have the expertise to put the local development plans in place. It's something we are always keeping under review around the capacity to do that, and the way that we have the agreements with the local authorities about the timescale for doing that. I think personally that there's room for improvement in the liaison between ourselves and local authorities around how they structure their LDP and what provision we help them with in order to accelerate some of those processes. Because a local authority that doesn't have a local development plan in place will find real problems in controlling its development control functions and being able to resist planning applications out with its plan. So it's not a good plan not to have a plan. Sorry, that seems very obvious, but it isn't a good plan, and I think we could work with our local authorities better to accelerate that process.
Question